So yeah, the topic of my today's speech is trade unions. Of course, it's I can say it's a bit sexy because, of course, we have a nice turmoil recently since 2023 with unionization in video games companies going on. So it's well, let's say it's time for unions now in the video games industry. I don't think I'm gonna, try to antagonize, employers versus trade unions. I'm not gonna boil, your emotions here. I think I personally think that trade unions are opportunity. I think that the unions are needed. They were needed 100 years ago. They are needed now, although their role it's a bit different. So today I'm just gonna go through as much as I can through the entire phenomenon of the industry. I'm not gonna delve too much into the legal stuff because when I was researching this for the purpose of this presentation, I came to the conclusion that the legal problems concerning unions are quite boring. If they're boring for me, they're going to be boring for you. So let's discuss maybe the phenomenon in general in the legal perspective, rather than stuff that is only interesting for like 10 people in the country, which are all lawyers. So yeah, what is trade union? It's trade unions. This is the definition from the Polish Act of Trade Unions. I think it's more or less the same for entire notion of the trade union. So it's a voluntary and self-governing organization of working people, working class people, established to represent and defend the rights and the social interests of those who are members or who are subject to trade union protection. So this is generally the definition that applies to every trade union. Of course, the landscape of trade unions is very different in Poland and other European countries and in US. So of course we all know that the unionization in the US it's quite different in terms of how it looks, how it governed than in Poland. So why the trade unions? Why now? What happened? So of course we all know how the industry looks like right now. Maybe even some of you were subject to work were involved directly in the problems that the industry has now. So there are not much of money flowing to the game companies as it used to be immediately post pandemic. There are layoffs. There are there are stuff. There are collective redundancies in big unions like in the US mostly. So this the state of the industry following the post-pandemic rise and increase in terms of growth is right now. It's like we all know how it's going. So we're facing layoffs and stuff. So that's why the unions now. Although I think in Poland it's still not that bad, I would say. We had some large layoffs in CD Projekt and other companies, although I think it's nothing compared to what's happening in the US. But I think that this is the factor that's makes the union emerge and grow now. So yeah, in terms of global perspective, how the unionization looks like, we have two reports: 2024 State of the Game Industry and the Developer Satisfaction Survey. They were conducted in 2023. We have two numbers of the number of game developers which are members of the union. So it's 5% according to the State of the Game Industry report, and it's 13% unionization rate for the Developer Satisfaction Survey. These surveys were made mainly in the US and Canada and UK and Germany, so let's say Western countries. So I think that's they're pretty relevant and up to date in terms of how the unionization really looks like. So it's from 5% to 13% in general for the game developers, and compared to 20%, 12% in 2021 and 6% in 2019. So as we can see, it's growing. It's growing mostly post-pandemic. I think we all know why, and it's growing globally now. So in terms of when we compare to the general economy in more traditional sectors, we see that for the private sector in the US, the unionization reached 6%, of which these are examples. So 15% in transportation and warehousing, 12% in the motion picture and sound recording industry, and 7% in the broader information sector. So of course, that's not a discovery of the millennium if we say that for the more traditional industries, for the more traditional sectors, the unionization rate is higher, and for the sectors that were naturally related to white collars, the unionization rate is a bit lower, but again, it's growing. So when we look at the state of the game industry report for 2023, the respondents were asked two questions. So, do you think the workers in the game industry should unionize? And that 57% said yes. So there is a support for the unionization, at least in these Western countries, where the question was asked, and by age group, what is interesting, particularly to me, is that 72% said yes when it comes to respondents from the younger age group, so from 18 to 24. Usually, at least in Poland, the trade unions are associated with, I won't say older people, but the people who, remember the big nationwide unions like Solidarność, and the people who work in the more traditional industries, like, I don't know, metallurgy and so on. So when you look at the people who are from the baby boomers generation, from the X generations, they're not so willing to unionize. It's the will of younger generations that are maybe pushing the unionization forward, which is, I think, good, because it's the younger people have this energy to fight for the rights and to really organize in terms of larger associations like trade unions. So it's mostly younger people who are willing to unionize, at least in the US. So in terms of unions in the video games across the world, we have, of course, the majority of the union organization is in the US and the UK. We have also unions in Canada, France, Sweden. So we have unions in these Western countries that are economically they belong to the first world, I would say. So it's not the unionization is greater in developed countries, in countries with where the economics is really doing well, at least in paper. Of course, we have in Poland the union, which is the main topic of my today presentation. We have Polish Game Dev Workers Union, forming a part of OZZ, Inicjatywa Pracownicza. Okay, I think that we can skip the collective agreements. So in terms of a greater perspective of trade unions in Poland, we had over 1.4 million union members in 2022, and this number went down from 2018 by 6%. and 0.5% of union members were employed on the basis of civil law contracts. I will discuss it a bit later, but it's important to understand the perspective that traditionally in Poland, the unionization is the unionization was more about protecting the rights of employees in a traditional meaning. So people who were employed on the basis of employment contracts and not civil law agreements. And recently, maybe not recently, but 5 years ago, the change of laws were enacted where people who were employed on the basis of contracts other than employment contracts, so like civil law agreements or even B2B contracts, were also given the right to unionize. But as we can see in the traditional sectors, that didn't really change the landscape of these people unionizing. But I think for the game dev, and I will talk about a little bit more later, it's very important that right now everybody who is employed, irrespective of a basis of employment, can unionize, and not only employees in a traditional meaning. And in terms of Polish landscape of unionization, 85% of union members in general belong to one of the three biggest nationwide organizations. So it's either Solidarność, OPZZ, or FZZ. So these are three organizations that govern federate, I would say, the unions in different industries. Because in Poland, it's at least these three organizations. They are dealing. They're not industry specific. They're dealing with more than one industry. So they are basically present in any industry. And as you can see from the graph, the information and communication sector only unionize 0.6 union members in general. So the traditional industries like manufacturing, education, healthcare, transportation, public administration, national defense, mining, they form around, I would say, 60 or 70% of total unionization. Whereas in the more white collar sectors, which are culture and entertainment, recreation, information and communication, these are just around 2.5% in total, or 2% in total. So there's still much to do in the game dev industry, and in generally speaking, creative industry and IT industry. There's still much potential to involve, to include more people in unionizing. So yeah, we have this first trade union in the Polish gaming industry that emerged late 2023. Polish Game Dev Workers Union, part of nationwide OZZ Inicjatywa Pracownicza. The fact that they are part of the greater nationwide organization is not something surprising, because of course these three organizations that I mentioned earlier, they have the capacity, they have the resources, legal advisors, finances to know how to help guys from who were at the time of creation this union, of course, inexperienced, to really help establish all this, meet the formal criteria, meet the formal requirements. Probably they navigated them a bit on how to do it, what to do with how the process should look like. So the fact that they're a part of the greater union, it's not surprising. I think that if any other trade unions will emerge in Poland, probably they're going to be part of this or two other nationwide organization as well. So it started in October 2023. They're currently present in City Project, 11-bit studios, Flying Wild Hog and Product Madness Poland. So as you can see, these are larger studios employing well, more people than less. So the unionization, of course, is easier in the larger studios because you can easily gather people who are interested in unionization, who just by the numbers of staff. Per their own words, they as of December 2023, they had 80 employees. 80 union members, not only employees, but union members. This is like 0.53% of the total number of employees in the industry. As Michał mentioned, it's around 16K as of now. So there's still a lot of potential for unionizing. I suppose right now it may be a different number than 80, probably. I would say probably doubled, but still not that much. Still, there's a lot of potential for the unionization in the industry. Again, focus as their own words, will be all game dev professionals, be it development, marketing, publishing, or back office. So this is also interesting thing when it comes to the industry specific for game dev, is that the game dev industry employs a huge number of professionals, huge number of different professions. So unlike the traditional sector, like the production sectors, where there are guys from just the production. So you have I don't know 3 or 4 or 5 types of position that are employed in the production, and there are a number of workers who occupy this position, whose rights need to be protected. In game dev we have a variety of professions. So there are only like 5 areas of professions mentioned, but all any of these areas, I could mention like five different professions. So so the trade unions are really have a tough task to do, because they need to somehow embrace all these professions and learn how to protect the rights and interests of everybody who's working on in one of these professions. And also, of course, we have a lot of outsourcing in game dev. So a lot of roles are I won't say pushed back, but set aside for outsourcing, like QA, testing, and so on. And of course, these people are also part of the industry, and also I suppose that they would like their rights and interests to be protected as well. So this is another tough challenge for the unions, how to protect those who work for the outsourcing company. So yeah, speaking of laws, as I said, it's not like the most interesting thing, but there are of course some notions that we need to know when it comes to discussing the trade union. So we have person performing paid work. Of course, it's a translation from Poland. Our legislation is not that good. So we have like monsters like persons performing paid work, but sorry, I didn't invent it. So person performing paid work is generally any person who is somehow engaged, employed, whose rights and interests can be protected by a union, and it's interesting that it can also be any person who is like performing kind of gig economy jobs, provided that he or she does not employ other persons. So in general, if you are engaged by a studio for more than 6 months, because this is also in the part of the definition, that you have to be employed by over 6 months, then irrespective of whether you're an employee or you're based on civil law contract like umowa zlecenia or a B2B contractor, you can unionize. I'm not encouraging you to do. I'm neutral, so. Of course, we have employer, so it's basically every entity that engages persons performing paid work. We have collective agreement, collective disputes. Collective agreement is basically układ zbiorowy. It's something that is associated with traditional industries. It's basically an agreement on the protection of rights of people who are unionized. So when there are negotiations on, I don't know, salary, working time, so on. These negotiations can end up in this collective agreement. This is a form of registered contract between the unions and the employer, which officially confirms the outcome of the negotiations. I don't know, salary raise or shortening the working time. We have collective dispute, and this is also a kind of civilized form of conducting dispute between the employer and the trade unions. So without the legislation, the collective dispute would be like, the strikes will be probably uncivilized. So that's why we have this legislation, collective dispute, that says how when the collective dispute can be organized, what are the requirements, what happens when it's over, what happens when the collective dispute is unresolved, and so on and so on. And of course, we have these union organizations, because we can't have just trade unions. We need to have some specific types of trade unions. So we have a workplace organizations, which is a monster definition. It's zakładowa organizacja związkowa. So we have this. So if you have this status of the workplace or trade union organizations, that means that you are allowed to be recognized by the employer, basically. So you're allowed to tell the employer, okay, I'm here. You need to talk to me. There are some rights that I can exercise toward you, the employer, and I'm no longer just an invisible group of people who are trying to protect the rights and interests, but I have this special legal status. So that's basically it. In terms of interworkplace, międzyzakładowa organizacja związkowa, that's just a trade union that covers more than one employee, and this is usually how it goes. So usually there are the trade unions cover more than one employees, and we have this representatywna union organization, which is kind of like first the greatest among the trade unions. So this is the kind of trade union that goes first in the negotiations with the employer. So if there are multiple trade unions, the representative one is the one that the employer is obliged to talk to. So yeah, what are the key entitlements of trade unions in Poland? I think that this is this may be kind of Polish specific, because unlike in example US, our trade unions are more focused on the employer rather than in the industry, because as I said, the largest organizations are the organizations that are like intersectoral, so they don't just deal with the problems of one industry, they will deal with the problems of many industries. And that makes the Polish landscape being focused on not just one industry, or the trade unions are not focused on just one industry, but they are focused more on the employer. So that makes, for example, in US, if you have a writers guild and you're part of the guild irrespective of whether you are employed by this studio or engaged by this studio or so on. Here it's like when you leave the employer, you probably and are engaged by another, you would probably change the union that is protecting your rights and interests. So they are more like employer centric than like skill or profession centric. So what they can do, the trade unions have some powers to maybe not block the employer in certain cases, but at least make some decision made by the employer a bit tougher, I would say. So these are consulting internal bylaws. So if you, as an employer, want to introduce remuneration regulations, workplace regulations, which are specific for the large employer employing over 50 employees, or remote work regulations or social benefits fund regulations, you need to first consult the trade union. So this is one of the key entitlements. So you have to go over the trade unions and discussion with the trade unions to really adopt it. Consulting termination of employment subject to union protection. So this, I think, this from the perspective of the usual employee, this is the most important thing, that if the employer wants to fire you, they need to first consult with the union. And of course, you as a union may protest against it. It doesn't change that much, but there is this additional step that the employer has to take before termination. Group layoffs. This, of course, one of the key entitlements. So if there are collective redundancies, group layoffs, then they need to be consulted with the trade union before they are conducted. And there is of course a special protection against dismissal of union activists or persons who are active as trade union activists. They are like in a storefront of the trade union. They are subject to special protections. Of course, we all know why. Because otherwise they will be fired very quickly, usually. And they have some privileges when it comes to how they usually work. So they have time free of work for to do the union activists. It's dependent on the size of the trade union, but generally they don't have to do all these union activist stuff in their free time. A trade union is also entitled to have the space and facilities for union activists, and that's usually some kind of separated room with, I don't know, water and some, I don't know, desk or table to just do basic group meetings and so on. But the employer needs to plan it. They need to provide it to the trade union. Trade unions are also entitled to start a collective dispute and call a strike. That's not that easy because there are some requirements that trade unions need to first need to comply with. But yeah, that's one of the greatest powers of the trade union that probably some employers fear, at least in the industry that is related to production that might not be stopped. So it's it's a strike and collective dispute, and there are of course rights to request information. So if employers receive an official request from the trade union, they need to provide some information on, for example, salaries, working condition, and so on, so on. So. As you can see, these, save for the entitlement to start a collective dispute, these are not the entitlements that would, I don't know, destroy a company, stop the working on the company, but they can be sometimes painful for the employer. So that's why some employers fear where there's a threat of employees unionizing. But I think that, well, if we put aside the legal entitlements, probably the game dev, the trade unions can really be a partner for employers. That's why I wanted to maybe ask a bit questions to myself and to you on the trends. So when we look on the current state, we have, of course, this quick initial growth of the unions in Poland. They were interviewed, they're made this hustle. They were kind of the apple in the eye of everybody for a quick moment. They're their own words that they want to be present in every Polish studio with more than 200 employees and many smaller ones within 2 years. So they have a plan which are very ambitious to just cover all the larger studios with the unionization. But when we look at how they want to operate and what they want to focus, is there really so much kind of room for them to unionize more and more employees? So if we look at the likely focus of the unions, these are of course civil law agreements. So in Poland it's very popular to employ people on civil law agreements, in B2B agreements, contracts of mandate, umowa zlecenie, contracts for performance of specific task, umowa o dzieło. So they want to deal with this and try to maybe raise the level of percentage of employment contracts, which are traditionally more the most stable form of employment. Certainly, there is a potential to do something about this in the industry. Layoffs, of course, they want to consult layoffs. They want to maybe reduce the impact of layoffs. I personally think that most of the layoffs in the industry have already been made in the first half of this year. I don't think that we're going to expect that much layoffs soon. I hope not. Working time crunch. So they want to stop the crunch, or at least limit the crunch. Probably there's still. Do I have still time now?
No.
No? Oh.
No.
Okay. How much?
No more time, unfortunately.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
So just maybe one quick note on the factors that may impede unionization. I think that sector fragmentation is the one. So there are really small studios that in which there are not that much room for unionization. There's a high fluctuation of employees. So if you're terminated from one studio, you're likely to go to another studio. People are really flexible, so maybe that would stop the unionization. The current state of industry, which is of course layoffs and downsize of certain studios, it will maybe make some people fear and prevent some people from unionizing. That might be the third factor. And of course there's awareness among employees, which is really low. People don't know how to unionize. So before unions will grow, they need to have this. They need to do this work on the basics and just try to increase that awareness among employees. Sorry for the prolongation.
It's okay. And as you can see, Jakub has a lot to say. He's very versed in the topic, and you can catch him and get the rest of information, and his expertise is for you over here. Thank you very much, Jakub.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yay.